Natasha and Her Illegitimate Child in a Muslim Society. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story is narrated in 2 books. Book 2. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the actual life of a Muslim family in Sudan. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Chapter 26. 7 Lawful Adulterous Relationships in Islam. The cruel death of Siham made Dr. Samir to feel terribly guilty. He held himself responsible for the painful punishment of her lover too. The Saudi newspapers mentioned that the adulterer Hashim has been flogged 100 lashes on his naked back, and he has become a severe handicapped young man and moving in wheelchair. He has been shipped back to Sudan, and he is banned from returning to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia forever, and his name has been placed in the blacklist. Even he is not allowed to come as a pilgrim during the annual Hajj rituals. Dr. Samir knew it was he who came in between that pure and sincere love between those brutally punished lovers, and he had separated them forever. He should have asked Siham whether she has a male lover or not before he agreed to get married to her. He did not even talk to her prior to their marriage. Being his female cousin, he thought she would accept him because it is a common custom in Sudan that the girl should marry her male cousin, and no good girl is supposed to go against it. However, what happened after their marriage proved that Siham remained faithful to her lover until that cost her life. Dr. Samir found himself for the first time having doubt about the punishment of an adulterous person in Islam. Why should Islam prescribe such a cruel punishment for adultery? For him, the punishment seemed to be crueler than the crime itself. That innocent doubt turned into a serious thinking about the concept of marriage and adultery in Islam. He knows that in Saudi Arabia every man has at least 2 to 3 wives. Some of the princes of the royal family boasted about the big number of women that they slept with. Some of them married over 100 women. For example, King Fahd said in an interview by a foreign magazine that he married 200 women, but he never kept more than 4 wives at a time. Dr. Samir asked himself why Islam allows the Muslim man to sleep with any number of women he wants and punishes the woman who dared to sleep with her lover while she is having a husband. Is not that same as the man who had a wife and go and take another woman and sleep with her? Why Islam allowed the man to practice polygamy and denied the practice to the woman? The last question led Dr. Samir to reflect on the sanctioning of sexual relation in Islam. Muslim men are allowed through history to practice various ways of sex with women. Dr. Samir remembered that one day he heard the imam of the mosque speaking about the lawful sexual relations between men and women in Islam. The imam said there are 7 lawful relations through which the Muslim men are permitted to have sex with women. 1. Monogamous marriage. A lawful relationship between one man and one woman. Quran, Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3. Marriage is defined as a permanent, immediate, and unconditional civil contract, which is not contingent, between 2 persons of opposite sex for mutual enjoyment and procreation of children. Varma 1988, page 56. As we shall see soon, this definition doesn't apply to the concept of marriage in Islam. The 2 concerned persons who sign the marriage contract in Muslim countries are not the husband and wife. According to Shafi and Maliki Sharia schools, a woman is utterly incompetent to enter into a marriage contract either herself or for another, even though her guardian should authorize her to do so. A father can give in marriage to any man his virgin daughter without asking her consent whatever her age. Varma 1988, page 24. There are no specific minimum age limitations in marriage in Islam. This is because the Prophet Muhammad had married Aisha at the age of 6 and slept with her when she was 9 years old. The Quran allows the girl to get married before she reaches the age of having her menstruation. See Surah Al-Talaq 65, verse 4. 2. Polygamy. A lawful relationship between one man and more than one woman, not to exceed 4 wives at the same time. Quran, Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3. 3. Sex with female slaves and captives of war. A lawful sexual relation between the man and his female slaves without marrying them. The same above verse, Quran, Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3, allows the Muslim men to have sex with their female slaves and captive women taken in war. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, "The Apostle of Allah, may peace be upon him, sent a military expedition to Aws on the occasion of the Battle of Hunain. They met their enemy and fought with them. They defeated them and took them captives. Some of the companions of the Apostle of Allah, may peace be upon him, were reluctant to have intercourse with the female captives in the presence of their husbands who were unbelievers. So Allah, the Exalted, sent down the Quranic verse, and all married women are forbidden, until you save those captives whom your right hands possess. Sunan Abu Dawud, page 2150. According to this verse, which is mentioned in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 24, Allah has allowed men to rape their captive women without the sanctity of the marriage bonds. Is this a holy God or a wicked pimp? Another companion of the Prophet, a man by the name Maharaz, said, I entered the mosque and saw Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. I sat with him and asked about withdrawing the penis while having intercourse. Abu Sa'id said, we went out with the Apostle of Allah, may peace be upon him, on the battle of Banu al-Mustalik, and took some Arab women captive, and we desired the women, for we were suffering from the absence of our wives, and we wanted ransom. So, we intended to withdraw the penis, while having intercourse with the slave women. But we asked ourselves, can we draw the penis when the Apostle of Allah, may peace be upon him, is among us before asking him about it? So, we asked him about it. He said, it does not matter if you do not. Sunan Abu Dawud, page 2167. 4. Child marriage. Islam allows men to marry and have sex with underage female children. The Prophet wrote the marriage contract with Aisha while she was 6 years old and consummated his marriage with her while she was 9 years old, and she remained with him for 9 years, till his death. Sahih al-Bukhari, Book 62, Hadith number 89. That means the founder of Islam had raped a female child of 9 years of age. Therefore, no Muslim scholar or religious leader could raise an objection if a Muslim man married and raped an underage girl. Even the Quran supports and permits the marriage of the underage girls who have not yet begun to menstruate. The Quran says, such of your women as have passed the age of monthly courses, for them the prescribed period, if you have any doubts, is 3 months, and for those who have not yet reached the age of having their menses, it is the same for those who carry life within their wombs. Their period is until they deliver their burdens, and for those who fear Allah, He will make their path easy. Surah Al-Talaq 65, verse 4. The commentator Ibn Kathir explains the above verse as follows. There is 3 kinds of women. 1. Those who are grown old and their period ceased. 2. Those small girls who do not yet have their menses. The old women and the underage girls who have not yet menstruated, if they got married and divorced, they must stay 3 months before they can remarry. The third type of women are those who still have their periods or are pregnant. Those women, if they got married and divorced, they must stay 3 months and 10 days before they remarry. 5. The enjoyment marriage. A temporary lawful relationship between a man and a woman. The relationship could be 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 days. The enjoyment marriage does not require a judge or witnesses. The man has to say to the woman, I marry you myself, and she has to say to him, I marry you myself. Before having sex, the man must pay a certain amount of money to the girl for allowing him to enjoy her private parts or holy pussy. This is nothing except another form of prostitution that has been clothed up by the attire of divinity. This kind of marriage is different from ordinary marriages because it does not aim at a continuous married life, but the sexual enjoyment in a halal way. It was permitted by the Prophet, but abolished by the second Caliph, Omar ibn al-Khattab. The Shiite sect argues that because this kind of marriage is permitted by the Quran, in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 24, the Caliph Omar had no legal right to abolish it. According to the Sharia law, No one has the right to abrogate any verse from the Quran after the death of the Prophet. Mutta marriage is unlawful in Sunni Islam, but practiced until today by the Shiite Muslims. In Iran, it is estimated that over 70% of temporary wives become prostitutes. Woodsmall 1983, page 119. 6. Misyar marriage. Al-Misyar marriage institution in Islam allows for a lesser form of relationship between man and woman than normal marriage. Al-Misyar is an official relationship between man and woman, but does neither require that the two stay together, nor that the man is economically responsible for his wife. Al-Misyar allows the man to have a normal wife in addition to his wives. The Misyar wife is expected to live with her parents, and her husband can visit her according to a predetermined schedule. Al-Misyar marriage has been practiced in Saudi Arabia and Egypt for years. The Egyptian Sunni Imam Sheikh Mohammed Sayed Tantawi and the former Mufti of Egypt officially legalized it in February 1999 and has also been defending the arrangement of Misyar. 7. The seventh marriage in Islam is the marriage of the 72 virgins in paradise. It is called Iris al-Shahid, or the marriage of the martyr. Many young Muslim men every year blow their bodies up in bits and pieces, believing that they will die as martyrs and go to paradise to enjoy sex with those 72 lovely virgins. The Quran and Hadiths describe their beauties in remarkable ways. We shall wed them unto huri girls, fair ones with wide, lovely eyes. Quran, Surah Al-Dukhan 44, verse 54. Therein maidens resting their glances, untouched before them by any man or jinn, lovely as rubies, beautiful as coral. Quran, Surah Al-Rahman 55, verses 56 to 58. The fair, the beautiful ones, virgins, with large eyeballs, kept close in their pavilions. Quran, Surah Al-Rahman 55, verse 72. And maidens of swelling breasts, Kuwaib, like of the same age, and a cup overflowing. Quran, Surah Al-Muzammil 73, verse 33. Kuwaib means the woman who has big breasts that are swelling and firm, not sagging. Hack and Newton 1996, page 16. The Prophet Muhammad said, "A woman does not give trouble to her husband in this world, but his wife of the pure-eyed ones, huri girls, does say to her, 'Do not give him trouble. May Allah destroy you. He is only a passing guest with you, and it is extremely near that he will soon leave you to come to us.'" Mishkat al-Masabi, Book 1, Hadith number 62. The Prophet was asked, "Do we have sex in paradise?" He answered, "Yes, by him who holds my soul in his hand, and it will be done daman, that is the intercourse done with such shove and disturbance. And when it is finished, she will return pure and virgin again." Hack and Newton 1996, page 17. Al-Mikdam ibn Matakarb said, "Allah be well pleased with him. The Messenger of Allah said, upon him blessings and peace. For the martyr in jihad in the divine presence there will be 6 qualities. 1. He will be forgiven from the first moment his blood is spilled. 2. He shall see his seat in paradise and be protected against the punishment of the grave. 3. He shall be safe from the greatest terror of the rising of the dead. 4. He shall be crowned with the diadem of dignity, 1 ruby of which is worth more than the entire world and its contents. 5. He shall be coupled with 72 spouses from the wide-eyed maidens of paradise. 6. He shall be granted to intercede for 70 of his relatives, reported by Ahmed and Al-Tirmizi. Ibn Abu Afa said, "May Allah be well pleased with him. The Messenger of Allah said, upon him blessings and peace. Every man from the people of paradise shall be married off to 4,000 virgins, 8,000 slave girls, and 100 wide-eyed maidens of paradise. They shall all meet him within every 7 days. They shall say with their exquisite voices, no creature has ever heard the like before. We are everlasting girls, we never grow old. We are the purified women, we never grow sour. We are the ever-pleased women, we never anger. We are the sedentary ones, we never travel away. Blessings to him who is for us, and we are for him." Mentioned in Abu al-Shaykh in Al-Azama and Al-Bayhaqi in Al-Bath and Al-Nashr. Those huri girls are virgins forever. According to one hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, when the Muslim man finished having sexual intercourse with the Virgin of Paradise, she would automatically return a virgin girl again. The Quran said that no human being or jinni had ever touched those virgins. They are not even human beings. They are sublime female creatures created especially for sex and entertainment of the Muslim males in paradise. The Quran described their beauty in various ways. They are as beautiful as diamonds and have large and beautiful eyes. Because the Arab men love the women who have large backsides, the Islamic books described in detail the buttocks of those virgins. One peculiar thing about the Paradise Virgin is that she would neither menstruate, nor defecate, nor urinate. She will not remove her feces and urine through her anal and vagina as the case of the woman of this earth. Whatever she ate or drank it would come out of her body as sweat. Her sweat smells like musk. She cannot become pregnant either no matter how many times the man has sex with her. Having those crazy ideas and fancy promises in their minds, the young Muslim mujahideen are always in a great hurry to die or blow their bodies in smithereens and go to paradise to enjoy those virgins and the rivers of wine. In conclusion, Dr. Samir understood that Islam allows the man to commit adultery in many subtle ways and forbids the woman to do the same. Why polygamy is halal and polyandry is haram? Why is one immoral sex practice allowed and the other immoral sex practice is forbidden? Both sexual practices are immoral and evil, and as such they are supposed to be both banned and criminalized as the case in other non-Muslim countries. That means Islam permits the men to abuse and rape their female counterparts under the pretension of halal sex, which sanctions by the Quran and supports by the Prophet hadiths and deeds. Chapter 27. The Mock Wedding. The cruel punishment of his late wife and his deep reflection on the so-called lawful sexual relations through which Islam permits Muslim men to have sex with women created serious doubts in the mind of Dr. Samir. He has never seen Islam in that way before his reflection on those evil ways of raping women and underage female children. He concluded that no religion in the world would allow its male followers to have sex with women without the sanctity of the marriage bonds except Islam. Also, no other religion would allow the man to have more than one wife at the same time except Islam. Moreover, no religion gives permission to its followers to rape their captive females or forcibly have sex with their female slaves except Islam. And no religion would permit an adult male to have sex with an underage girl except Islam. Dr. Samir knew the marriages of female children who have not yet reached the age of puberty is a common practice in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and other Muslim countries. He even remembered cases of Saudi female children who were as old as 10 or 11 years who had been brought to the hospital where he was working as a physician with copious bleedings in their private parts due to sexual intercourse. They had been married to men older than their fathers or grandfathers. Those female children had not yet developed into womanhood. Each one of those female victims had tiny vaginas that could not accommodate the large penis of the evil grown-up man who raped her under the pretension of child marriage in Islam. Dr. Samir also recollected the case of the Yemeni female child who copiously bled to death due to having sex with her adult husband. Therefore, he lost respect for the founder of Islam due to his evil teachings on marriage, sex, and adultery. He concluded that all the so-called 6 lawful sexual relations between Muslim men and women are nothing but lawful adulterous relations that meant to give men the right to use and abuse women for their selfish animalistic desires. Dr. Samir's doubts, instead of leading him to look for the truth somewhere else, it led him to think of killing himself. He doubted the truthfulness of Islam and concluded that there is no God governing the universe. How God could give men the right to practice such evils against women? Many Muslims, when they doubt the truth of Islam, they become atheists. Instead of turning to Christianity and Judaism and try to find the truth in those heavenly religions, the doubting Muslims automatically reject them as inseparable from Islam. In other words, they unconsciously believe that all 3 religions are from the same source. If one of them is proved to be wrong, then the other 2 are false too. But this fallacious way of reasoning always leads to a false conclusion. Dr. Samir, like many Muslims before him, has fallen into the same trap and has become an atheist. After doubting the veracity of Islam and the existence of God, Dr. Samir concluded that his life became meaningless, especially after his wife was caught in the very act of adultery and cruelly punished by the Sharia court. He is thinking no one is going to respect and love him anymore. He has no place any longer in any Muslim society. He cannot return to Sudan and start a new life. Wherever he will go, the scandal of his wife and her stoning to death shall follow him. When those ugly suicidal thoughts crept again in the agitated mind of Dr. Samir, Dr. Nadia and her husband Sami once again approached him at the critical time in his life and suggested that he should leave the Muslim world and immigrate to the West. They even suggested Canada as a land of good opportunity for a successful medical doctor like him. Immigrating to the West has never entered the mind of Dr. Samir until his good neighbors have suggested it as a solution to his seemingly insoluble problem. Before that, he concluded there is no place for him in society anymore. However, the bright idea of Dr. Nadia and her husband Sami is the last ray of hope that Dr. Samir found himself holding to it. He gladly accepted the idea and asked them to advise him in how to immigrate to Canada. He told them that he does not want to spend any more time in Saudi Arabia or return to Sudan. He wants to go to a Western country and start a new life. Although the idea of his Good Samaritan sounded exceedingly promising, when Dr. Samir tried to put it into practice, it turned out to be almost impossible. When he visited the Canadian embassy in Riyadh, he has been told that the waiting period if he applied for an immigrant visa would be between 12 to 18 months. How could he hide himself in his apartment for such a long period of time? His good neighbors, Dr. Nadia and her husband Sami, are leaving soon the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and returning to Canada. Even so, the kind Canadians decided not to abandon their heartbroken neighbor until they would find a solution to his problem. But when they learned about the difficulty of immigrating to Canada in short time, Dr. Nadia and her husband found themselves helpless in the case of their desperate and abandoned neighbor. At the same time, they found it difficult to wash their hands and leave him to kill himself or die of sorrow. When all doors of hope were closed, Dr. Nadia suggested an idea and shared it first with her husband. At first, Sami strongly opposed it, but after a second thought and a little pressure from his wife, he accepted it. Dr. Nadia knew that Dr. Samir could obtain a landed immigrant visa in short time if he married a Canadian woman. In order to put the brilliant idea into practice, Dr. Nadia and Sami have to disclose their hidden secret to their desperate neighbor. They have to inform him that they are not true husband and wife, but they are real biological brother and sister. Moreover, they have to reveal to him that Sami has an Ethiopian wife and 2 children in Canada. In addition, Dr. Samir has to know that although Dr. Nadia and Sami are pretending to be husband and wife, they have neither got married to each other nor have any false marriage certificate. They just lied to the Saudi embassy in Canada that they are a married couple, and they had believed their words. The embassy never asked them to prove their marital relationship and issued to them the 2 visiting visas. Most important, they have decided never to mention that they are illegitimate children and unwittingly got married and had a baby girl together. If Dr. Samir believed them and accepted their story, then Dr. Nadia suggested that she would marry him just on papers and help him to immigrate to Canada in short time. And when they would reach Canada, Dr. Samir and Dr. Nadia would file for a divorce. When the good neighbors disclosed their hidden secret to their lonely neighbor and told him about the quick solution to his problem, Dr. Samir believed their story and gladly accepted the good plan. He thanked Dr. Nadia a million times for what she proposed to do for him. He found it difficult to believe that any mortal human being could make such a great sacrifice in order to help someone who was not related to her in any way. The first step in executing that secret proposal, the good neighbors told their desperate neighbor Dr. Samir to travel with them out of Saudi Arabia to another Arab country. Sami and Dr. Nadia entered Saudi Arabia as husband and wife, and most likely in any airport in the kingdom their names would show up in the computer as a married couple. So, if during their exit, it appeared that Dr. Nadia Ahmed married Dr. Samir Mahmood while she is supposedly married to Sami Ahmed, then she would be caught, tried, and stoned to death for marrying 2 men at the same time. In Islam, polygamy is halal and polyandry is haram. In the Muslim world, it has never happened that a Muslim woman married two men at the same time except one woman. It is a case of a Sudanese woman who deceptively married a wealthy Saudi man while she was still lawfully married to a Sudanese man. Her two husbands knew nothing about her dual marriage. While polygamy is legal and encouraged by the Quran, polyandry is the greatest crime in the Muslim world. Polyandry is a form of polygamy in which a woman takes two or more husbands at the same time. It was her Sudanese neighbors that living in Saudi Arabia who discovered her polyandrous dual marriage and informed the police authority. Immediately, the polyandrous wife was arrested, tried, convicted, and stoned to death on a Friday afternoon. After that, never again anyone heard that a Muslim woman practiced the abominable sin of polyandry anywhere in the Muslim world. Accordingly, Dr. Nadia, her brother Sammy, and Dr. Samir decided to travel to Dubai and carry out their wonderful plan over there. They went to the Arab United Emirates Embassy and applied for 6 months visiting visas. On the following day, they obtained their visas. A week later, they flew from Riyadh City to Dubai City. Shortly after their arrival, the female Dr. Nadia and Dr. Samir got married according to the Sunnah of Allah and His Messenger Muhammad. Their marriage contract has been conducted by a recognized religious imam in a mosque. As a woman, Dr. Nadia is not allowed to enter the mosque while her marriage contract has been signed by her brother Sammy and her husband Samir. Sammy is her wali guardian and Samir her groom. In Islam, the woman is not allowed under any circumstances to sign her marriage contract. According to Sharia, a woman is utterly incompetent to enter into a marriage contract either herself or for another, even though her guardian should authorize her to do so. The Sharia requires that the marriage contract should be signed by the father of the bride and her groom. If she has no father, then her brother must sign it. In case she has neither father nor brother, then her uncle should sign it. In the absence of any male relative, then the judge of the Sharia court would sign the contract as her male guardian. Accordingly, Sammy acted as his sister's guardian and signed her marriage contract with her groom Dr. Samir. The Canadian brother and sister have not informed Dr. Samir that they are Christians, but pretending to be Muslims. Notwithstanding, the marriage has been done only on paper, but there is not any sexual relation between the newly wedded couple. After that, Dr. Nadia and her pseudo-husband Dr. Samir went to the Canadian embassy to apply for a spouse visa. They have been told that their applications would not be accepted unless they supply proof that their marriage is genuine. The evidence could be wedding photos, restaurants' bills, movie theaters' tickets, and honeymoon places that they visited together. Without those tangible pieces of evidence, their applications would be rejected. This is because the immigration authority had discovered there were many mock marriages made by immigrants to fool the government of Canada. There were cases of Indians got married to their sisters and brothers in order to bring them in spouse visas to Canada. Worse than that, some Egyptians bribed some Canadian hookers and streets girls and sent them to Cairo and Alexandria and made them have mock marriages with their brothers and uncles and then brought them as their real husbands. But such impossibly to acquire proofs discouraged Dr. Nadia and her brother Sammy and led them to think of forsaking their desperate friend and fly back to Canada. But they know that they have already planted the seed of hope in the bleeding heart of Dr. Samir, and if they would abandon him at this stage, he might kill himself. To solve such difficulty, Sammy suggested that Dr. Nadia and Dr. Samir should go around the city and visit many places of entertainment and gather some pieces of evidence to support their applications. The newly wedded couple followed the wise advice of Sammy and went on a tour around the cosmopolitan city of Dubai and took many photos together. They even traveled to Abu Dhabi City for a faux honeymoon. Chapter 28. The Power of Love. It took the newly married couple 4 weeks to collect those pieces of evidence that required for obtaining a spousal visa to Canada. Then, Dr. Nadia and Dr. Samir approached the Canadian embassy and filled their applications for spousal visa. Since Dr. Samir is not a citizen of the United Arab Emirates, the Canadian embassy has to obtain a police criminal reports in all the countries he lived in, namely Sudan, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The good neighbors were once again got disappointed when they are told that the process would take a few months before the embassy would decide on their applications. As before, Dr. Nadia and her brother Sammy at first wanted to leave their heartbroken Sudanese male medical doctor and return to Canada. They know this time Dr. Samir is waiting for his Canadian immigrant visa on a good hope. But at a second thought, Dr. Nadia decided to seize the opportunity and visit other Arab countries and learn about the status of women in those Muslim countries. Sammy did not like her idea and tried to convince her to accompany him back to Canada and leave Dr. Samir to stay alone for a few months until he would get his landed immigrant visa. Dr. Nadia assured her brother that she would take care of herself in his absence. Furthermore, she convinced Sammy that Dr. Samir is not that kind of a man who may take advantage of her staying all alone with him and try to rape her or sexually harass her. The short time she spent with him, Dr. Nadia learned that Dr. Samir is a decent gentleman that she can trust him. After convincing her brother, Dr. Nadia told Dr. Samir about her willingness to stay with him until he obtained his spousal visa. Dr. Samir happily welcomed the idea and thanked Dr. Nadia and her brother Sammy for their trust in him. After Sammy flew back to Canada, the couple rented an apartment in Dubai and began to live together. They are living in 2 separate bedrooms. Since they are legally married to each other and have their marriage certificate, the couple could live together and move freely everywhere. So far, neither Dr. Nadia told her partner about her Christian faith, nor Dr. Samir revealed to her his disbelief in the religion of Islam and his atheistic conclusion. Each one of them made the other to believe that he or she is a faithful adherent of the Islamic faith. Since they met in Riyadh City, Dr. Samir hardly saw the face of Dr. Nadia. She always veiled her entire face with the Islamic niqab. On a few occasions, he saw a glimpse of her face when she revealed part of it to eat her food, or when she stood for a photo. However, the charming personality of Dr. Nadia made him like her so much. Even so, he never tried to push those feelings further for the fear of being accused by Dr. Nadia and her brother Sammy of demanding too much or taking advantage of their kindness towards him. Nonetheless, after her brother left, the handsome Sudanese Dr. Samir noticed that the lovely Dr. Nadia is getting closer to him day after day, and that filled his heart with so much happiness. Still, he considered her affection towards him is a platonic in nature, and she has no erotic feeling towards him. Moreover, he heard that a Western girl could mix freely with another man and treats him as a buddy without she is having any sexual feelings towards him. But from his part, he knew and understood that he had already begun to love her and having strong sexual desire for her. Before he met her, he has never fallen in love with a girl. He has never expected the love of the woman is going to fill his heart with such a wonderful feeling. He loves her kindness, sacrifice, boldness, and vast knowledge. Dr. Nadia never told him that she is a PhD holder. She could talk in every topic with far more knowledge and understanding than him. In fact, he found her more knowledgeable than her brother Sammy. Moreover, he has never met a girl like her who is a multilingual who could speak 6 languages: Arabic, English, French, Russian, Amharic, and Tigrinya. Therefore, he considered her a female genius. For that reason, her love forced itself on him and he could not resist it. He loved her personality more than her physical attractions. In those few times he saw Dr. Nadia's face, Dr. Samir noticed 4 things which always made him want to speak to her about them. He saw 2 scars, one on the left side of her face somewhere between her left eye and left ear, and another one between her lips and chin. In both cheeks, she has big moles which seem to be unusual for a girl to have them. Those 4 things are not contributing to her beauty, but rather they are distorting it. Apart from that, she has beautiful eyes and an irresistible sensual feminine figure. She has a white skin and exceedingly long hair, which made her to look like a foreigner rather than a Sudanese. She did not inform him that her late grandmother was a Russian woman. As a medical doctor, Dr. Samir knew that Dr. Nadia could do some plastic surgeries to remove those ugly scars and big moles. If those 4 things had disappeared from her face, he understood Dr. Nadia would look like the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. What Dr. Samir saw on her face is true, but what he does not know is that those 4 things are artificial makeup that Dr. Nadia is putting purposely to disguise her identity. Since the time she left Canada, she used those artificial scars and moles to hide her real face behind them. She is scared that she might be recognized as the Sudanese girl who was arrested and imprisoned in Sudan, and then she got condemned by the Sharia court because of the false accusations of spying for a Zionist group in Canada and apostasy from Islam to Christianity, and sentenced to be put to death. Whenever she went to bed, she removed them from her face, and before she stepped out of her bedroom, she wore them again. Dr. Nadia also began to like the handsome Dr. Samir, and she is looking at him as a good man too. She does not want to push her emotions beyond good friends. She is scared that Dr. Samir might think that she is blackmailing him because his future at present is in her hands. She does not want to build a friendship on lies. She thought he might not like her if he discovered later that she is a Christian and pretending to be a Muslim woman. In addition, she expected that when he would come to know about her past life, he might hate her for not telling him that she was married and has 2 children in Canada. In addition to that, he might despise her if he discovered that her children were fathered through incest by her brother and father. Nonetheless, when her brother left and she began to live with Dr. Samir in an apartment, Dr. Nadia's feelings towards him ran out of her control and she began to love him. She knows that he loves her too. But both lovers have been prevented from revealing their love for each other because of those barriers which each of them has built in his mind. In the meantime, the married lovers are living in an everlasting honeymoon. They traveled to so many Arab countries and explored the entire Middle East region. They visited most of the major cities in the Arab countries such as Abu Dhabi, Doha, Kuwait, Amman, Damascus, Jerusalem, Baghdad, and Beirut. Beside their great enjoyment she is experiencing with her new handsome lover, Dr. Nadia could be able to learn a great deal about the Arabic culture and the social lives of women in those Muslim countries. She took hundreds of photos of women and learned many things about them. Meanwhile, Dr. Samir has been puzzled by the great interest that Dr. Nadia is having about women in the Muslim world. He could not understand why she is so passionate on the topic of women. He always saw her writing down whatever she observed and learned about the women in every city they visited. She even tried to learn from him about the women in Saudi Arabia. He disclosed to her whatever he knew or saw was happening to the women in that country. Through him she learned how female children were married in early age and how they were raped by men older than their fathers or grandfathers. Many times, female children brides were rushed to the hospital where he used to work with serious damages happened to their private parts when those wicked Arab men raped them under the pretension of halal child marriage. He told her that women are treated like prisoners and animals in that country. The woman will never be referred to by her name or her gender, but she is called Al-Makaloga, which means the female creature. Instead of calling her by her name, the girl is either referred to as the daughter of Ahmed or the wife of Hassan or the sister of Musa. Even her father may not mention her name, but calls her my daughter. Therefore, she will hear her name only when her mother, sister, or girlfriend call her. Many times, those close female relatives refer to her as the daughter of Khalid or sister of Tariq or the wife of Abdul al-Hadi. Quite often, Dr. Samir treated women who were brutally beaten by their outraged husbands or battered by their fathers. In some cases, some women got beaten to death by their angry men. Whenever a badly battered woman was brought for treatment in the hospital due to some domestic violence, her case had never reached the police. The hospital has been forbidden by law to refer any physical abuse that had been done to a woman by a husband or a father to the police. Such a restriction is based on a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad which said, "The man should not be asked why he beats the members of his household," Sunan Abu Dawud. Only if a murder has been committed then the case might reach the police authority. But many times, teenage girls got slain in honor killings and their dead bodies were buried in the house or hidden somewhere in the desert. Dr. Nadia lived with Dr. Samir in the same apartment for 3 months before he received his landed immigrant visa. During those 3 months, he never harassed her sexually or tried to do anything to upset her. However, during those months the two friends became so attached to each other. They lived together, ate together, traveled together, and enjoyed each other's company. As they said, Love neither asks our permission nor gives us the right to choose to accept it or reject it. That is what has happened in the case of those two intimate friends. But neither Dr. Samir revealed his strong love to his Canadian beloved girlfriend, nor Dr. Nadia disclosed her deep love to her Sudanese lover. None of them demanded from the other except his or her good friendship. Finally, the pseudo-married couple booked their flight from Dubai to Toronto and waited for the day of their departure. None of them wished in his heart or her heart that day should come. But wonderful days are always short-lived, and the day of their flight has come at last. It is on the eve of their departure something unexpected happened. That day, the lovers went for their final tour in the city. As soon as they returned to their apartment, they packed their luggage and immediately went to bed. Each one entered his room and fell asleep. Notwithstanding, a small incident happened on the day prior to their flight to Canada. On that night, Dr. Samir suddenly woke up in the middle of the night when he heard Dr. Nadia is screaming at the top of her voice. His first reaction is to run from his bedroom to her bedroom and rescue her. He thought someone has broken in their apartment and has attempted to rape Dr. Nadia. When he came out of his room, he discovered that she was not in her bedroom. Her shouting indicated that she was in the bathroom. He then ran to the bathroom for her rescue. When he entered the bathroom, he found that Dr. Nadia had accidentally slipped and hurt her body. He bended over her body and carried her on his arms and brought her to the living room. Then, he examined the bruises that had been caused by her accidental fall. He found out that she had not broken any one of her bones. One of her legs is bleeding. He was able to stop the bleeding by wrapping it with a piece of cloth. After that, he gently massaged the other parts of her body which are still aching due to the fall. Dr. Nadia felt relieved from the pain and thanked him. It is the first time for Dr. Samir to see Dr. Nadia without her Islamic niqab and those artificial scars and moles. Dr. Nadia is wearing a short nightie that exposes her arms, shoulders, thighs, hips, and most of her legs. But Dr. Samir is amazed when he sees her in her nightdress while her face is shining like the moon without those ugly scars and moles. He was perplexed and started to speak some confusing words. His reaction alarmed Dr. Nadia and made her so frightened. She understood that he had seen her face for the first time without her artificial disguise. His eyes have continued to stare at her face while the expression in them is demanding an explanation. Dr. Nadia has no words to explain her position. She only lowered her gaze and began to look at the floor. At that critical moment, she expected something to happen. She would not be surprised if he slaps her on her cheek or spits on her face for deceiving him all this time. Nonetheless, while she was expecting the worst to happen, she felt his hand gently touch her cheek and heard his voice whispering softly, "You are so beautiful, you are gorgeous, your marvelous beauty is beyond description." Dr. Nadia has remained silent and did not push his hand away from her cheek. She is enjoying his loving touch and hearing his deep voice praising her beauty. Her heart began to beat fast, and her body became sensual. Then, she felt his hand move from her cheek and crept to her shoulder, and met his other hand on her back and surrounded her. She could hear the beating of their hearts when he erotically has hugged her. She had not resisted but yielded to his loving hug. She has also not waited for him to kiss her, but she has found his lips and began to kiss him. He has responded to her kiss, and both the intimate lovers for the first time have engaged their bodies in passionate kissing and hugging.